per interaction capabilities with molecules. 45 seconds is an eternity. These things can do all kinds of things in 45 seconds. So that's actually quite a long time. When you consider the half-lives of, say, a subatomic particle like a gluon or something. So what we're basically doing is we're setting up the capability to where the oxygen reactions can be absorbed by the water, and efficacy can be found by that absorption process. So what a water molecule does in 45 seconds is of no a water atom does in 45 seconds is not a particular consequence to me. It can do an infinite number of things, which then produce an infinite number of things, which can produce an infinite number of things, and probably billions of reactions within 45 seconds. So
I will pay a real good compliment. I'll pay a real good compliment on your water. I was just using a Nikon filter where you dump it through and it filters out, right? And it's a pretty good water, But basically, usually I like to drink electrolyte water. But I put the leader on the pad, and Lauren, about 8 years ago, developed a thing called silk water. And I was going to give it to Dr. Bob Martin, the radio talk show host, and he sent me a leader out to Scottsdale. And I took a sip of it before I brought it over to Bob, and it was like champagne. And I said, this isn't going to Bob. And my mother's best friend and I just used to get brandy snifters and just take some sips of it at night. This is no BS. So anyway, but basically I called Lauren today and I said, the one characteristic that Bill's stuff had, just on some simplistic base, was
Could you tell the audience, Dean, could you tell the audience who Lauren is, what his qualifications are?
Lauren Zanier is a child prodigy. He actually invented structured water. He and Patrick Flanagan, who was 1997 Scientist of the Year, they're sort of parallel. They don't like each other. They know each other, but they're kind of in competition. But Lawrence used wood and steel when he was 6 years old in 1951. He wrote the resonant field theory in 1958. I've worked for him for 21 years. His work was submitted by a guy named Lee Lorenzen, who was partners with a guy named Emoto by the University of Paris for the Nobel Prize. Really a talented guy. And I've worked with him very closely, but his water was absolutely the smoothest. But I'm going to tell you, I had to call Lauren. I said, that stuff with Bill, just putting it on the charge pad, it was as good as the silk water. So I'm just paying you a compliment here.
Well, Dean, thank you very much on that. Essentially, what I believe is that, as I'm sure all of you know, we have a very, very large percentage of water in our bodies, and essentially, it's a lot more than one might look at first blush. It really is the substrate in which every single aspect of life occurs. But what's really interesting about it is that it really isn't H2O. What it really is the crystals, the liquid crystals that H2O makes, because these they become
clusters.
They become catalysts for biochemical reactions at various levels of power. So when you have a situation where these crystals are formed by negative energy, as the body accepts negative energy, let's say, the chances are that the biochemical reactions are going to be retarded significantly by the shape of the crystals and what they can actually accomplish. On the other hand, if you have something coming in where the water is actually charged, where it has actually a different kind of water crystal that's highly energized, along with the fact that it has a different shape as well, and that enters into the body, it changes the shapes of the other water crystals. It's like doping the body with another water crystal that's significantly different in many, many ways. This heightens the power of biochemical reactions significantly, just like the distance energy does, heighten the quality of the aura and therefore affects the biochemical reactions indirectly as well. So every single thing that comes into us probably comes in indirectly through water crystals. And so by working with water crystals, which I've decided to do a little bit, I guess, what I'm doing is essentially changing the information coming into the body by the way that it receives it. Now, I'm not saying there aren't other structures where you can receive information. Obviously, the neurological system is a great big antenna that can pick up all kinds of things. The circulatory system, every one of these things are etheric antennas as well as water. But water is 70% of the body. Therefore, no matter what these other things are, water is going to be a very, very significant part of it. So what I'm trying to do in various ways that I can come up with is to work with those aspects. The way I worked it with a distance energy thing is I use very, very etheric energy. It's extremely high-powered, but it's also very etheric. It works on many, many iterations of these concentric circles that come out of the body, which people call auras or chakras or everything, and we've got a few of them in our body. We've got a whole bunch of them outside of our body, actually an infinite number. So what the machine does, the actual machine itself, is to work on every single aspect of those things, which go all the way out to infinity. What the water does is it works in 1 or 2 layers, maybe 3 to 6 feet off the body, where it can really affect the biochemical reactions almost like a really heavy pop. It doesn't have much to do with the effect of the etheric body way out in space, but it has a lot to do with the physical body. It's a physical aspect, jamming it in the physical way, changing it in the physical way, and so therefore it seems like it's a lot more powerful, but it's only because the person's sensing organs are also physical plane, and therefore the sensations are physical plane, and so they feel jazzed by it. The machine is actually much, much stronger, but it doesn't really work on the sensitivity like the water does, if that's of any help.
Yeah, and also I want to do one more compliment. I don't want to hog the audience's time up here, but basically, before I hung up, I liked your take on the new alchemy with biophysics.
Yes.
Your approach, because that's really what's happening.
I believe that to be honest with you, Dean, and I thank you very much for that statement as well. Every one of your statements have been excellent, in my opinion. What people have to understand is that the people that are on these calls and the people that are on the machine are a very elite group of people. They're people that get it. They get it. They understand the sensitivity. They have high levels of sensitivity. They've been on the process for a long time of ascension. They've worked on it. They've done everything they possibly could to reach these higher levels through whatever means they could. And this has allowed them to have the sensitivity to pick up the energy off the machine, and they're to be complimented for that. In my next book, Ouroboros, I equate the machine to a sort of a rapture process, although not the rapture described in the Bible. It's essentially a rapture process in the sense that only a small percentage of people are actually up to the capability of ascending. It may only be 2, 3, 1% of the population. I don't really know. All I know is these people have the capacity to receive the machine energy and blow themselves to an extremely high level, which, by the way, is continuing to be raised as we almost, weekly and daily in some cases as we speak. So these people are on a very, very rapid move to a high level that other people can't even possibly understand. These people are going to be avatars in the most direct way. They'll go into a restaurant, which actually happens to me every once in a while, and people will say, who are you? They can feel the auric power outside of them, and they're drawn into it or they're repelled by it, which is great one way or the other. Who cares?
You know what I've noticed, Bill? I've noticed it's. I did a deal about a year and a half ago.
Is that you, Plato? Or is this Kevin?
No, Dean.
Steve. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm good.
No, but what I was just last thing I was going to say is that I've noticed that your science, and I did another one with a guy named Bob Lloyd. He's got an interesting technology, allegedly from Atlantis or something, but we bought one, Dennis and I. But what I noticed is on this new dimension, there's a waiting audience and market. They're sitting there waiting. They don't know they're waiting.
Dennis, you could not be more correct. And I'll tell you something else that you may not have thought about. This is for all of you as well. What's also happening is the waiting audience is being energized. For all those of you that understand and accept the idea of noetics, I'll tell you a little story. When I first started building these machines, I thought they were really strong powered. I thought I really found something, and I would go up and I would get to the high level of it, and boy, I'd go through all this stuff, and then I'd build another machine, and it was stronger, and I'd go through that and all this stuff and clearing and all this. What I didn't realize was I was bringing up everybody on the planet the same way. People get on the machines now that would just jangled me all over the place a year ago, and they accept it like it's nothing. So what we're really doing, all of us, is we're raising the consciousness of the human race in a very, very powerful way, not just from close association, but also just from living and breathing.